Welcome to Greenfield's Connecting During COVID video interviews. These interviews are designed to help us connect as a community of faith and share ideas and stories of interest and inspiration. Today I'm talking with Andrew Skinner about habits. Andrew and his wife, Melissa, have been part of our community for about a year. You have seen Andrew play electric guitar as part of one of our worship teams. So welcome, Andrew, to this video cast.
Hey, thanks, Tyler.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. Staying inside for the most part.
So, in the past, we talked about, the New Year sermon series that we did here at Greenfield on habits of purpose for an age of distraction. And I was, planning on having you share one Sunday morning about some of, kind of how you responded and was thinking about that series. And now, of course, that isn't going to happen, at least not in the near future. So I figured it would be a good time to do a video interview with you. Now, from the series, as well as your own reading of Justin Whitmell Earley's book, The Common Rule, you've personally found this emphasis helpful for your walk with Christ. So I guess one of the initial questions here then would just be, what did you find most compelling about The Common Rule?
Oh, two things. One, the idea that everyone has kind of like these default settings or default common rule that they follow, whether or not we're aware of it. And there's a lot of things in our lives that we do because that's what we've always done, or because that's how it works on Tuesday nights, or that those kinds of things without even thinking about it. So for me, it was kind of eye-opening to realize, okay, like what things in my life am I doing because they're the out-of-the-box settings on Andrew kind of thing.
Okay.
And then another one, I guess the idea of what a habit response looks like. So it was interesting to hear. I mean, you know how habits work, like, and a habit can be anything from first thing you do in the morning when you wake up to, when you're driving the white mud, do you go 80? Like, what do you do on Friday nights at 7:00? Do you go to your small group? Those kinds of things. But for I guess looking at ways to how to reprogram your life, or how to reprogram a habit that you've established, what kinds of things can you do? And you talked about the idea of there being a trigger or a cue, and then that's the thing that kind of sets off the chain reaction, and then routine, and then at the end of the routine there's a reward, and that's kind of what reinforces the whole habit. So how do you change a habit or like a behavior pattern in your life? And I felt that it was kind of interesting because I think intuitively you go right away to, okay, well, I gotta change the cue, or I gotta change the trigger, or what sets this off, or you have to go, look at the reward and change your reward structure, and those kinds of things. But really, like, the only thing that we can practically do sometimes is mess with the routine. So you change the routine, you're reprogramming that habit in your life, and all of a sudden different cues might appeal more to you, or set off a new routine that pushes you towards the reward that you're more wanting to focus in on. So I thought that was a really neat way to look at how that works.
Yeah, it's sort of a simple insight, I guess, but it can have profound implications. So I guess the question is then, what habits or spiritual practices did you look at building into your rule of life? Like, what's worked so far for you? Share with us a little bit about, the practical realities of it.
I think that's the cool part about this, is that it's not about doing like game changing, like, whoa, I can't believe you went with that one kind of thing. Like, it was just build some small things into your life and see what happens. So that was the goal from the beginning. So I decided to focus on 3. And so I think the first one that was the easiest was, like, first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, what is that? And so the scripture for before phone habit made a lot of sense. So I started with that since I guess the end of December, beginning of January. So, and I've noticed, yeah, just like how that kind of spills into other areas of your life when you make the first thing that you look at to be God's words instead of Instagram. Can be a yeah, it can be a big difference. Um, and then another, I guess the second one was 1 hour with my phone off daily, and the time that I chose to do it was right when I walked in the door from work, and so I would be commuting home and come in the door, and oftentimes I would look at my email and catch stuff that I'm getting last minute requests from my boss, and totally throws my focus towards back out to work when really like my wife and I are getting home, and it's time for us to be together. And yeah, so having that kind of a distraction is yeah can really throw an evening. So that was a really big change to make too. And then yeah, with the phone off, the next thing we would do is share a meal together with focused attention. So those three things were what I thought I could do sustainably, and um, yeah, it's been a really great difference, and you can really kind of feel the impact that that's made, even though they're just small things.
Cool. Yeah, I think, and by the way, I will have for those listening, the related blog post will have a link to the sermon series as well as Justin Whitmell Early's book and website, and I'll put them in the description for this video as well. So there's a number of different habits that he talks about, but I think that's cool how you took three of them, right? You don't have to take them all. You don't have to do any massive changes to your life. But just think about small things, and those small things, he talked about keystone habits, which those habits, while they may be small, will have a profound implication in your life. And so, scripture before phone, I would say, would be a keystone habit. For myself, I find that, the prayer 3 times a day, and I use an app on my phone with that. And so that's something which has helped me and has, you know, I would say made me more prayerful generally. So now, one of the realities, and I think, I mentioned this in the sermon series at some point, and it's in the book as well, that there might be different seasons of life, right? Like in your life, in terms of where you are now, if you were a student versus someone who uh, is in the twilight of your life, or someone who's in the more middle part, whatever. And there's also different seasons throughout the year that you need to account for. So your rhythm and your thinking of your habits might be different during vacation than, or even just during the summer than winter, especially here in Edmonton. So now I don't think any of us would have thought that um, about how our habits are being challenged and are changing in light of this pandemic that we're in the middle of. And so, I guess, in light of some of the changing realities, such as working from home, the social distancing measures that everyone's trying to follow, and just not even be able to gather together, whether you're a church or small group, at least not in person, but you know, how has uh, this time, like, how have you adjusted? How have it helped or hindered in your spiritual habits or practices?
Yeah, it's been one of those challenges, and I guess one of the things that I appreciated about reading in the book was like you're going to have curveballs that you're going to have to hit, or you're going to have some thought about changes that just naturally occur in life and different seasons. So yeah, I'd say that like self-isolation, which is basically what we've been doing for almost 3 weeks now, has been one of those curveballs. Um, and I guess in some ways, um, life has just kind of progressed. I mean, my office is now just downstairs instead of a 20-minute drive. So I've still been able to keep up with my scripture before phone, but like I think it's looking at what adjustments you can make to those habits or those common rule choices that you made that will um, yeah I, sorry, maybe we'll have to edit this part out, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I think that you need to look at what adjustments you need to make in light of the circumstances. So, um, yeah, we had a meal, like to share a meal once a day before, and nowadays, like we share 3 meals together. But I don't think it's about so much the quantity as it needs to be about the quality. So rather than just having 3 meals that you share together while you're watching Netflix or distracted and multitasking, have at least one of those meals be one where, okay, phones off or put away, or we're sitting down at the table together and we're intentionally having a meal. And I think that can make a difference, and has probably been a good adjustment for us to make or continue to make. um, yeah, and then we were joking by text
Yeah.
because I told you, so now can we curate media till like 4 hours per day instead of per week? But um, I think one of the big tragedies of going through um, a global pandemic where there's so many people responding and having to change different rhythms in their life, that, like a tragedy would be to come out of this and have the outcome be that you finished like all 8 seasons of you know some TV show. Um, so yeah, I think we still need to look at curating media, because yeah, while we might have you know our normal routines totally thrown off, it doesn't mean that it just means we're killing time now. I think we still have to figure out something good to do with our days, and yeah, to be thinking about like what am I going to be proud of that I accomplished during this self-isolation time. So what does that mean? Like for me, it's meant building in some reading time. Um, we haven't done it, as regularly as I would maybe like to continue, but that been a couple days where we said, okay, 7 o'clock reading time. Let's do that for an hour, um, or like going out at lunchtime for a walk. Um, Building in kind of those sorts of reset, times during your day to just like refocus your attention.
So no, I think that's great. So what, I guess last question then, just as well, what's next, or how do you want to take this further, or do you have any advice for people who are viewing?
Um, I guess like one thing to do might be to check in with your small group if you were part of that time where you set some of these habits for yourself up with a small group, and check in and see how people are doing. Maybe different people in your group have ideas that you didn't think of, or maybe it's just good to like find new strategies and work together to have some accountability and some
Yeah.
yeah some structure. So yeah, that might be one thing. Another is like variety is a big help to just to make it through a routine where you're stuck indoors. So yeah, if you're getting bored doing the same thing all day, yeah, of course you are. I think it doesn't matter how exciting a thing is, you'll eventually get bored of it. So to build that variety in, and so what better way to like look at maybe building some structure in your day, as long as it helps, like having like a reading time or a puzzling time, or okay, this is time to go walking outside, or this is, and just some ideas that you can use, so you don't catch yourself like, oh man, you just wasted another day watching, what's that show called, Tiger King or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not. I've heard of it. I haven't seen
Yeah.
it myself, but it's supposed to be rather disturbing or intriguing, I guess. So, but yeah, no, I think that's those are good tips, because and I like even the fact of coming back to this series' topic now, because at the beginning of the year everyone is all keen and gusto to let's change habits, let's make resolutions and this, and then like what happens to them, they just kind of fall by the wayside as we progress. And I think this is something which is useful to come back to revisit. And we have to revisit something like this in our rule of life, our habits, our spiritual disciplines regularly, uh, to, I guess, just to make sure that we're still on the right track, and to do those small adjustments in our life as they're necessary. And I guess at this time, in light of COVID-19 and everything, that, well, um, we've had to make many adjustments at this time to the way that we socialize, the way that we connect with one another. And so these habits can be some anchors, anchors for our soul in some ways, that can keep us sort of centered and focused on God and others at this time. So thank you very much, for sharing today. As we continue down this road of social distancing and isolation, we can do. I hope that we can do more than binge watch the latest online show, and instead we can lean into our spiritual practices. Practices that include prayer, scripture reading, but also connecting with others safely during the season that we find ourselves in. So thank you, Andrew.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to seeing you back up on the platform at church playing your guitar as we worship together, and kind of thinking that, whenever we do get to come together again, it's going to be a pretty wild party, I think. So it'll be great to gather together and to
Looking forward
worship
to that.
together. So have a good day,
You too.
and thank you very much. Take care.